Hey guys, welcome back to Best Practice TV. This is Talking Business, and today's guest has got a wealth of information and a wealth of knowledge in a range of industries. But in this particular episode of Talking Business, we're going to start to explore what it means and what it's like for an entrepreneur to start a business, to identify some issues in a particular industry that he's got a passion for, and how he can talk to us and how he has taken his not negotiables into the financial services sector. We might talk a little bit about the state of the union in terms of what's happening for the financial services industry, but more importantly, we'll understand what it's like for you guys to potentially read and receive some financial advice from a financial planner. We'll talk to you guys as the end user. So I want to introduce you guys this morning to Scott Miller from Asendium, and we'll put the links below in the comments after the live episode has finished to Asendium, so you can go and check out their platform. And what I want you guys to do is, as you're listening to Scott and Scott's story, he's going to introduce himself shortly, is to take you across into Asendium, into the world of Asendium. I want you guys to be asking your financial planners, the people you're getting financial advice from, do they use this system? Have they looked at it? That's exciting. Yes. So welcome, Scott.
Thanks.
How are you?
Good.
That's the way. Thanks for joining us. So I guess we are streaming live, obviously, on YouTube. And a bunch of other content. Tell us about what's happening with Asendium. Where are you? Like, yes, you started the business. We'll explore that, but just take me through, like, today, right now, what's happening in the organisation.
So, right now with Asendium, what we're actually doing is, given the Royal Commission, everyone's obviously heard of that. Planners are under a significant burden in terms of compliance paperwork, in terms of manual tasks. Now, a lot of software providers out there actually don't cater to the specific niche that we're actually solving. So when we were financial planners and ran a financial planning practice, we wanted a solution that actually helped alleviate the burden of tasks and procedures that actually don't add any value to the client. So a planner spends about 90% of their time on non-value add tasks. But every software out there focuses only on the 10%.
Right.
So this 90% can be automated, and what we've done is automate it.
Yeah, right. Awesome. So for you, just talk us through, maybe tell us your life story in terms of, the last 10 years. What's brought you to this particular point? So tell us what's been going on in your career.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know this, but when I was 18, I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease.
Yeah, right.
And that significantly impacted my ability to work. Mm-hmm. I was on and off work for a matter of 3 years. 6 months I couldn't do anything at one stage, and I thought, I'm going to have to really work through this in order to be able to survive, mm-hmm. to generate a living, build wealth. Mm-hmm. And I thought there had to have been a way to actually offset the financial loss. Mm-hmm. And then I actually found out and explored insurance at such a young age. And found that, I could have had insurance when I was 18.
Yeah,
which
right.
could have paid for my income protection while I was off work, could have paid me a trauma payment, which could have alleviated the medical costs and burden to my family. And I thought, more people should be focusing on this, because you never know when it's going to hit you. So I actually set about finishing my double degree, then moving into financial planning, and then moved to the city to actually start exploring that. Now, I found that when I was working in the industry, I was assisting financial planners, but I saw that sometimes there were areas that they could further explore, or there are other solutions that could be added on top, but I didn't actually see the client end. So what I did was actually put my foot into the shoes of the planner, and actually became a financial planner through Horizons. It's an A&P program. 1,300 people apply, they accept about 30, and then of that 30, 8 to 10 survive the 12-month program.
Yeah, right.
So
wow.
I set up my practice after that, and we did holistic advice, so every area of advice, not just one. We were fee for service, we had no commissions, no product trails, because I saw my mum and dad actually had financial advice when I was younger, and there was all these product trails when they got me to have a look at it when I was a planner, and I just switched them off immediately, because it doesn't have to be there.
Yeah, right.
So after being a planner for 6 years, we won multiple national awards with A&P for Practice of the Year, Planner of the Year. Money Management Young Achiever of the Year, and William, my colleague, was runner-up in that year, so that was quite an achievement. But they were awarded to us due to our client engagement, client focus, client education. That's part of the award criteria. And I ended up finding that I was spending about 60, 70, sometimes 80 hours a week, but probably about 4 or 5 hours with clients. The rest was on paperwork.
So just exploring the end user, I guess, and a lot of our audience, and even the guys that are here helping us with what we're doing today, I guess there's in my world, in my circle of friends, there's probably a belief that, you know, if you gauged a level of success, that it'd be the business owner or the boss that went and got financial advice and got financial support, or it would be, you know, the guy down the street that's the successful tradesman that's got 5 apprentices would be the person that goes and gets financial advice. To somebody who's in their mid-20s, 25 years old, what are the 3 or 4 areas that you think that they should go and explore as a 25-year-old person working at best practice, for example?
Yep. So a lot of people think, as you said, advice is only reserved for the wealthy, and that's a common misconception. Advice can actually be affordable because a lot of people don't realize you can pay for your advice fee from your superannuation. And when people go, oh wait, so I can get a fee paid from my superannuation and I can get advice around retirement, insurance, super, investments. Have to pay a bit outside super though if you're doing investments. But the 4 key areas you would look at would be, the first is securing your income and securing your livelihood. At 20, obtaining insurance is ridiculously cheap, astronomically cheap, because you're young, you're healthy. The second one would be superannuation, making sure it's all in one place and making sure it's invested correctly, even just in a simple index fund. It's very, very cost effective. You can probably reference the Barefoot Investor. He's got a lot of suggestions if you just want quick, easy solutions. The next area would be to build an emergency fund. A lot of people, if you look at statistics and data, can't survive 2 weeks without a paycheck. But if you try to survive more than 2 weeks without a paycheck, you'll actually see, oh, I really wish I had that emergency fund. So setting up, what I used to do for clients would be a notice account. It requires 30 days notice before you can get the funds out. So use that to build your savings for an emergency. And the next one is just understanding your cash flow, because a lot of people don't know they know what's coming in, but they don't know what's going out. And you'll find that they're almost breaking even or losing money, because you'll see credit card debt start to increase. So those are probably the 4 areas you would have to look at. And it is quite affordable to get advice in those 4 areas. It's just, you just have to go ask a planner.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, $30 because you can buy the Barefoot Investors book, I guess.
Exactly.
So just to summarise, so everybody, if you're 20 to 40 years old, this advice for you is your superannuation, and I think it's 407A in the US, I think, because we've got some
401k.
401k, there you go, 401k if you're in the US watching. So superannuation, we call that here in Australia. Your protection, income protection, I guess, insurance, that's what I've got, and I've had it since I was 25 years old. Your, I guess, budget / cash flow.
Yep.
And then
Emergency fund.
Emergency fund. So of your, say, weekly earnings, annual earnings, what percentage, just as a rough guide for people, they can go and set up their emergency fund and you know, put the 30-day restraint on themselves. But just as a point of reference, what percentage of their salary would you recommend they try to put into that fund?
I'd probably say start at 30.
30%?
Yeah.
30% of your weekly earnings?
Weekly earnings.
Wow, that's a lot.
Well, when we actually did that with clients, we found that a lot of people were spending at least 70% of their after-tax earnings on non-essentials.
Yep.
You'd spend 30 to 40% usually on rent, depending where it is, and then you have your Stan subscription, your Netflix subscription, your YouTube subscription, your other subscriptions, your gym subscription. You've got a mobile plan with the latest iPhone that costs you $200 a month. All these luxuries, which if you just repackage it and just focus on the essentials, you can actually save the 30%. And with that 30%, once you save it over time, you're looking at 2, 3, 4 years, you can then start to generate a bit of income from it, put it into an investment, and then that can effectively pay for your subscriptions, pay for your gym membership.
Yeah.
And
So
then
give
you can
yourself
save
that
more.
as the reward.
Exactly.
Not the not negotiable, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. How's that feel for you guys? Tough? Does it feel tough?
Sounds a bit more manageable if you hear it like that. Yeah.
You're right. So for you guys who don't realise, there's also 4 people behind the cameras here. So, I mean, for you guys, that is tough, right? Like 30% of your after-tax earning, like if that's $1,000, that's like, you know, if it's $1,000 after tax, that's $300 a week. That's tough.
Spend 15 grand a year, you save that for 4 years, there's 60, put it into a fund that's earning 6 to 10%. You're getting about 4 to 6 grand out a year, and that'll pay for your gym, it'll pay for your subscriptions, and then that basically just stays there.
Yeah, so try to, I guess the principle, if you follow some guys like Dan Locke and some of those guys, they're like, invest it, throw it so it throws off cash, and then the cash that it's throwing off, you can then have the luxuries, if that makes sense. Interesting. Cool. So if we think about your vision and mission and passion, talk me through the last 3 years in the business. Talk me through what's been happening and some of the challenges that you've really struggled with.
Yeah, well, with our particular solution, it requires a lot of content. So what we've done is we've downloaded our financial planning practices, conversational knowledge with clients, and factual knowledge. So we have information that we had to document about every particular type of investment style, investment philosophy, reason for investing, same with insurance, same with cash flow, superannuation. And then we had to document how the planner explains it to a client and how a client would respond to that. So we interviewed many planners, many clients, and we actually gathered their conversations, the clients' conversations, and we've structured that into a process where it's based on conditional and conversational logic. So the average person will type about 40 words per minute, and if you have a standard meeting process, like you meet with a client, you explain what you do, in financial planning, a lot of people don't realize every engagement, every email, every text, every phone call with a client or product provider or anything to do with advice, you have to document that. So if you have a 1 hour meeting with a client, it will take you 30 minutes to an hour to document that. So every hour you spend with a client, there's another hour. So what we've done is we've developed, it took me basically working 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, 6 months straight, just to write one section of the conversational logic. But we did that over 2 years, writing multiple different areas of the advice process. So current processes are planners will go physically type up their entire conversation with the client, the risks, the warnings. They'll then go type up a fact find, typing up the reason why a feature, and 90% of the reason why a client wants something is usually the same. But we enabled the planner to tick a box and it populates that conversation. So if you've had a different conversation, you tick a different box. Then it encourages the planner to personalize it based on that client engagement. So they're only doing 10% instead of 100% of the work. And that 10% is the value add to the client, not the 90.
Yeah, right. So correct me if I'm wrong. So essentially the bulk of what's happening with the application is it's predicated on the planner complying with their financial services license.
Yeah, so they have to meet obligations with ASIC, they have to meet obligations with their dealer group, but a lot of these obligations are to protect the dealer group, not to protect the client, which a lot of people don't realise. So the reason you do additional, some people have to do what's called a strategy paper, where you have to document what you've just documented in a different way. So you have to just re-document something you've just created, but structure it in a different way, and that's mainly for the dealer group, not the client. Okay.
So if we take a step back from this whole process, if you are somebody out there, if one of our viewers out there is thinking about, they've got this great idea and developing an app, or for whatever the solution is, whatever the problem is they've decided that they're passionate about solving, for somebody who's been on this journey, what would you tell them about that journey? What advice would you give them if they've got the idea in their head? What advice would you give them?
Well, everyone's going to tell you it's a stupid idea, you can't do it, it's not going to add value, it's the same as everything else. But if you believe in that idea and you can understand the unique position of that idea and how it plays a part in what you're trying to solve, then you just push through that, because you'll find in 6 to 12 months' time, people are going, oh, wow, you're really onto something, I always believed in you. So basically, no, you're going to fail, you're not going to succeed. be prepared for 7-day weeks if you're just starting out. So the last 2 years we've spent just working 7 days a week, building every like functionality, every little niche of the software and the content for 2 years before we've even launched it 3 weeks ago. So if they are working on it, that's what they have to be prepared for.
I heard someone say the other day, I was in an interview, I can't remember who I was watching, but it was someone that said basically tons of people come in with ideas, and this guy's response is essentially, so that sounds like a great idea. Are you ready to do it for the next 20 years? Are you ready to do it 7 days a week for the next 20 years? Because they're like, oh my, I've got this great idea, it's going to blow up in the next 24 months. And you go, cool. What if it takes 20 years?
Yeah, so that's when I have people come to me, because I still engage with planners, I still engage with people of other industries. They come and they say, what do you think about this idea because you're doing tech? And I say, well, do you believe in it? Do you have a passion about it? Because if you don't have a passion about it, you're not going to work those 7 days a week. You're not going to invest the next 20 years of your life. So when they actually reflect on it, I just want to quickly build it, then sell it off. I'm like, well, good luck, because that's one of the ones that's going to fail. So you have to have a strong passion about it. So every single person in our business has either been a financial planner or been impacted by financial planning and actually understands the pain that planners go through. And that's our why, that's our passion, to remove the pain so that planners actually get their lives back. And being a planner, if someone had done this for me, I would have been like, here's all my money, sign me up, give it. Because lost weekends, lost social events, lost family events, because you have to do your file notes, you have to go do your documentation.
Yeah, look, I think it's you made an interesting point earlier about, just circling back to it, about, you know, we're taking over and we're helping with a lot of the stuff that's not value add. I would argue that it is value add, because you can't do the work if you don't do it. So it's like, you know, it's like breathing, right? Yes, sometimes it's a bit of an effort, but if you don't breathe, you don't get to live. You know, so it is, you know, and we have it here. You know, we're a very compliance-heavy organisation with a regulator. We had the regulator in here 2 weeks ago for one part of our business, basically, you know, going through every single file, and, you know, we've got written up 8 non-conformances. You know, they're the blind spots. So we'll fix that stuff and we'll move on. They'll come back in a year's time. They'll write some more non-compliances, if you like. So tell me something. So now, hindsight's an amazing thing. Next year is 2020, and 2020 is going to give us 2020 vision. And we're going to be talking strategy. What advice, with the experience that you currently have, would you give yourself if you could go back in a time machine 10 years?
If I go back in time 10 years ago, I would try to see what's actually going to be changing 5 years from now. Because if I look back 10 years, I would have seen that technology is going to be the mainstay. And then if you look back even 20 years, then you have the internet. And the people that jumped on the internet were considered, well, that's weird, but they're the ones that succeeding. So I'd say look 5 years into the future, even if it's 10 years ago. So right now, I'm looking 5 years into the future. I'm looking at AI. I'm looking at deep fakes for financial planning and how we're going to incorporate those to assist clients who don't want a planner but want engagement with someone. So we're already moving towards looking what's going to be 5 years from now and trying to actually build that into our processes to adapt as it comes up.
Talk to us about deep fakes.
Okay, so
give me the ABC basics.
Okay, so you have AI. So AI is where the deepfake's based off. So if a deepfake is basically an image recreation of a person. So if you put a deepfake next to a live video, it's very hard to tell the difference. So there's ones of like Obama out there, and you can't tell the difference. So the purpose we see deep fakes playing is currently you have what's called robo-advice, which a client doesn't get any emotional engagement from a planner. But emotion is what the biggest factor is when it comes to investing, when it comes to saving, when it comes to your livelihood. So they can't talk to a robo-advice because it just recommends whatever the cheapest product is. They don't want to pay for a planner given how much it costs with the new framework. So Asendium's trying to make it cheaper for clients to get advice by removing the burden on planners. But where we see deep fakes coming in is that you can actually engage with a deep fake, has an AI conversation with you, documents it, takes in what you want, and then uses Asendium to create the advice, which can then be deployed via the deep fake. So if you don't want to speak, you can speak to a person or you can speak to a deep fake. It's just a low cost alternative, which I see businesses like AMP moving towards. So their new 3-pronged strategy is, one, you do it yourself online, which that's where we see the deep fake would come in. It would be someone to talk you through it. 2 is phone based, but it's not really personalised. And 3 is the personalised service, which is they're now reserving for the wealthy, which is not ideal. So deep fakes, I see, is still giving the human engagement to clients who can't afford to pay for the personalised engagement. And we also see the deep fakes playing a part as a PA or an admin associate within the software for the planner. So the planner would, because there are apps which can track your conversation now, so we can program it to say, can you follow up this with Mrs. Smith to see if they've provided their ID? Then the AI can actually go out there, leave a deep fake video message, etc., and then talk to the client, say this is what we need, why we need it, can you please send it through?
I can see this playing out in so many industries.
Yes.
So many. It we were talking about Gary Vaynerchuk earlier and the social media stuff. He's just basically saying all information is going to be free. If you're in the information industry, we're in the information industry. There's certain things. I've just been over at the local coffee roaster around the corner. Getting the coffee beans for the kitchen, and we're talking about it. It's like we give tons of advice on Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. around how to make beautiful coffees. The beans will never be free, but the information. And I can see, I can now see how that plays out. It's fascinating. So if we just explore that a little bit further for not just the financial services industry, but how would you encourage someone who is in that information advisory type space, where would you suggest they go and start doing some reading around this issue?
Around deepfakes or around tech in general?
Well, not tech in general, but around how the advice that's being given, even say for example, organisation 250 staff. I assume that there's a play here for an organisation to go look at advice for staff, inductions, training, development plans, performance reviews in terms of people working in organisations. Somebody who might be in a systems administrator, HR, people and culture type role in an organisation, where should they go and do some reading to start learning about the concept of deep fake, AI, that type of stuff?
Well, a lot of it comes out in, you have essays coming out, you have theses coming out, because deepfakes isn't commonly adopted. AI is just fresh as well, so a lot of AI on the market says they're AI, but when you actually look into it, it's just conditional logic, so it's not actually AI. So I think actually understanding the difference between AI, conditional logic, and where the technology and innovation is right now, who's working on it, what are they writing about, what are the risks, what are the pros, the cons. I think reading journals, reading quarterly essays, university papers, and industry inside magazines. So for financial planning, you have like the professional planner, which is always writing about things. You have risk info, money management. For processes and procedures, best practice. So going out and actually talking to the people in that specific field, because I find that there's information everywhere, but the best place to get some information is from the people that actually work in that field, because they can then tell you where to specifically look. Yeah, right.
Okay, well, there you go. Excellent. So, state of the nation. Here in Australia, we've had the Royal Commission. We've got APRA carrying on like pork chop. Where are we today? We've had APRA go forwards, go backwards. Where are we today?
Yeah, so I think the ASIC and the regulator has definitely overcorrected.
Yep.
It's been a knee-jerk reaction. So in every industry, you have bad eggs. So like people trust accountants, but some accountants open an SMSF and just put people in a term deposit, and then you pay more in auditing fees than you do in return. You have electricians who will say, oh, you need this fixed, but it's actually you don't. So there's always a bad egg, and it's usually the 1% of the 1%.
Mm-hmm.
But the Royal Commission highlighted it, and then the media made a propaganda saying that it's all planners. But I speak to planners on a daily basis. They're actually just trying to do best by their clients, and their clients actually see that. So clients who haven't been advised by a planner don't actually know the value they add. So that's one thing where instead of creating an image, a client should actually just go speak to a planner. The overcorrection has basically placed a further burden on planners. So as you mentioned before, doing the 90% actually is the value, but the 90% I'm referring to, the 10% is the strategy, the recommendation, the why. The 90% is the duplication of that exact thing into several different formats that don't actually go to the client. So ASIC and the Royal Commission have placed even more burden. Now I'm seeing planners leave the industry because there's too much paperwork, there's too much burden. And with that cost to operate that paperwork, you're seeing advice fees go from $1,500, $2,500, $5,000, $10,000 or more because it takes so much time to do it. Current processes, due to the new changes, post-Royal Commission, with the additional documentation, the additional paperwork, you're looking at 60 hours to deliver comprehensive advice instead of what was before 40 or even 30. So an FPA white paper says it's 26 hours, but that was 26 hours if you just do one area, not if you do comprehensive advice. So if you've gone from 40 hours to 60 hours, the cost to deliver advice has to change. And by ASIC and the regulator trying to do good by their client, they've basically removed the opportunity to get advice for the mums and dads, which then forces the mums and dads to go to industry supers or banks who won't charge. But you're going to get that bank or you're going to get that industry super, so it's not really based on their best interest.
There's a conflict of interest too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they're allowed to do that. So getting personalised advice is now hard to reach due to the Royal Commission, because it's impacted the 99% of planners that were doing good and the 1% that were doing bad. And the 1% doing bad that were already left the industry.
Do you see compliance in the next 5 years getting better or worse? Worse. Talk me through what you see.
So right now you have changes where previously planners would have to do projections for 5 years or 10 years. Now you're seeing 10 years minimum, and then you're seeing viability analysis for every area of how it actually impacts. So if a client wants insurance advice, you have to do superannuation advice if they're paying from super. But if you're also doing insurance advice, you now have to do estate planning advice in case they pass away because they have life insurance. Then if you're doing that, you also have to evaluate their cash flow to see if they can afford the insurance. So in order to do just one single area of advice, it's no longer viable, so you have to do comprehensive advice.
Mm-hmm. What about in tech? So I just want to make a blunt statement for everybody who's watching and gets to this point of this episode. This compliance that we're talking about, it's not just this industry, it's every industry. Compliance is becoming,
ridiculous.
There's as many people working on trying to automate it and make it easier for everybody as there are lawmakers, regulators, standards, guidelines.
Creating new ones then tech has to adopt to.
Correct, because every single change to what we're doing increases the compliance requirements. As a tech company, what about compliance?
As a tech company, data and security is probably our paramount focus. So we're based on these APRA-approved servers in Australia. Everything's Australia-based. Everything's two-factor authentication. We're making sure we're moving towards ISO certification. Funny enough, working with you.
Yep.
So to work towards that, because in today's environment, pretty much everything's digitized. It's no longer going to be paper-based, and if it's digitized, you have to have the security, the protection, you have to have the processes to recover. You also have to make sure you have cyber insurance, IT insurance. It's getting even more robust. So you have the compliance to actually do your job, and then the compliance to actually maintain the ability to do your job.
Yeah. So as a I like to steer these conversations towards deploying a bit of empathy for the end users. As an end user, so you're running a tech company, and it's a highly professional one, and it's about a mission and vision and passion to do the right thing. Now that you're running a tech company, you've moved from services to tech. From an end user perspective, like these guys here in the room, what are you? What would you say is important for these guys if they're considering any sort of tech supplier from a compliance perspective or a user interface perspective? And we talk about GDPR, privacy, cybersecurity, etc. What do you want those guys to be asking their suppliers to do? Because this is all about, I guess, the strategy is to even the playing field, right?
Yeah.
So if the end users ask for it, then all tech starts to lift their game. Because I know there's some guys cutting corners. What do you want these guys to ask their tech suppliers for?
So ask where the data's stored, who the data's provided to, where are the servers based, who runs those servers. So actively get the details of who's in charge of the service, where the servers are located, where's the data stored, what's the data used for, is there any third-party suppliers of data? Because I remember there was one fintech, the startup in Australia that I heard of, and they actually had their servers based over in the Philippines, and they had part of their T's and C's when you sign up that they can share the data with marketing companies, but it was a personalized advice business. So if you're receiving personalized financial planning, do you want your data held offshore, then sold to marketing companies to then come back and be sold to you? So making sure that your data isn't being sold to third parties is definitely paramount.
And let's just navigate that for a minute, because everybody wants everything for free, and for somebody to provide, just to deploy a bit of empathy to someone who would sell data, no, I don't think it's a good idea, but let's just workshop that for a second. Somebody who, are you paying for that service, or is it free? Because if you are entering all your personal information into a free service, that service has got to be funded somehow. And that's, Facebook started, and it was predicated on the fact that eventually they would sell advertising. Now they're selling advertising with the data that they've got, and everyone's like, oh, Facebook's got my data. It's like, yeah, it's free. So where's that, where's that delicate line as a tech organization? Because presumably it's like, well, how can we have sustainable service that's as cheap as possible, because we've got these other things that we can sell? What happens in your mind when you're trying to navigate that?
It's hard.
Yep.
It's definitely hard. I think one way they could possibly address it, I'm not a tech expert in terms of data, is like with Facebook. I think I was watching the Senate inquiry where they don't actually sell the data. They give the advertiser gives them the specifics they want to advertise to, and then Facebook market it out to the people, not that specific advertiser. So I don't know how accurate that is, but that was.
Yeah, I mean, I can't access, we do a heap of Facebook advertising. I can't access you.
Exactly, but you go through Facebook, and Facebook accesses the data because it's stored on their servers, and they're the ones that. Yeah,
I say to Facebook, show my content to people who like this, do this, want this, are this all, this is my avatar that I build. So talk me through the risks of offshore data management for you.
In terms of us, pretty much every dealer group in this country requires data management to be stored onshore. So if you're operating a financial planning practice or a software CRM that's for financial planners, if your servers are offshore, the dealer group won't approve it.
Okay.
And the dealer groups basically issue the license to planners, and planners have to abide by the dealer group guidelines. So if your server is in India, it's not in Australia. So therefore, they'll say you can't use that software.
Yeah, right, okay.
So the dealer group basically helps mediate that.
So as an end user of any type of software in your organisation, whether it's for HR, compliance, CRM, any of that sort of stuff, you can start asking that question. At the end of the day, you're the customer. It obviously becomes a price thing. So stuff that's, the supplier's going to look for the cheaper ways to, put that information down and where to host it. And that's, that's the driver. It's not that there's any other reason except for cost. So it is, in a lot of instances, they're looking for the cheapest place to host that stuff. But you are the customer at the end of the day. If you're really concerned about this, pay a little bit more, drive your suppliers to be hosting that stuff. A lot of our clients obviously managing, HR information, that type of stuff. So for these guys, if you think ahead, the next 5 years, as in the context of wealth creation, and it's not really about providing specific advice, but it's around their frameworks. What do you think a 25-year-old should be thinking about in terms of the next 6 months? If there's different spokes to the wheel of life, and this is about, storing some of their income to then go and make that income go and work for itself, and then buying the fancy car, watch, house, whatever that might be. We talked about those 4 areas that are managing those areas to look at. As a 25-year-old, where do you think they should be focusing, like in terms of research and getting an understanding? Like you talk. Let me rephrase the question. Levels of risk in terms of where we can put stuff. teach them about 25, at a 25-year-old about what risk is and where I'm going to play, because they're going to see one and this one's going to be this amount, this one's going to be this amount. Talk about risk appetite.
In terms of investing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the best place to actually start looking is you definitely go to moneysmart.gov.au. It's a government website which basically provides free information, free calculators, free resources, and that's where you should be the first place to start. The next is to do your own independent reading of books. Now, the Barefoot Investor is a great place to start, but the Barefoot Investor doesn't cover what a planner can cover. So in terms of superannuation and insurance, that's where a planner should come in, because a lot of clients would go, I'll just go to industry fund, it's cheap, easy to get insurance, but the definition means that of the insurance means you may not ever be able to claim, but a planner would know that. So do your own research, moneysmart.gov, read the Barefoot, do your own readings in magazines and journals and articles, even read Vanguard have great, so Vanguard Investments, they actually have great resources on their website. One of the best resources I actually always showed a client was their 30-year investment chart. So it shows cash, property, term deposits and shares over the last 30 years, and you'll find that cash has barely changed. Property and shares, as you would expect, have significantly increased. Then term deposits have only just above cash. So if you go to Vanguard, look at a 30-year in performance chart, that'll give you an indication that investing isn't actually risky. Not investing is risky, because if you invest in cash and term deposits, then you're going to be nowhere. You get 2.5% on your bank account. Inflation's 2.5%. You get zero.
Yeah. Okay. What where can people find you? Give us all your socials.
Yeah. So on LinkedIn, Scott Bradley Miller. On Instagram as well, Scott_Miller_Asendium. You can also find Facebook Asendium, Instagram Asendium. ASENDIUM. If you're a financial planner, always open for a coffee to hear about their journey, their experience, and what we can do to assist their practice. We're finding we're able to increase efficiency by 90%, which means they get their weekends with their family. So definitely hit me up on LinkedIn, because I'm on there non-stop. And if you're a client, there are planners that I have access to that I can easily introduce you to, who I understand their process, their procedures. So if you are looking for someone to start the conversation, I'm always happy to have a conversation with you as well on LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. So last question, what's the impact you want to make in this world?
So everyone at Asendium, we don't talk about an impact, we talk about a legacy. So we want, when you think about financial advice, you think, okay, I have to have a license. And the second thing that we want everyone to go to is, I need Asendium. So we already have expansion plans for New Zealand, UK, Singapore and Canada. They're all undergoing changes similar to Australia, especially in Canada and New Zealand. And we're already starting to adapt to those. So we want to be in every country that specialises in financial advice, so that you have your license, you have Asendium. And by having Asendium, you can deliver quality advice. By delivering quality advice, clients now have a better outcome in life.
Okay, awesome, nice. So, question for the audience from you. We've got lots of viewers all over the world, LinkedIn, Instagram, we're live on YouTube. What can they help you with? What's a question? You've got all these people out there and they'll comment, they'll lean into the channel. We've got a best practice mastermind, we've got tons of great people. What's a question that they can help you with, a piece of data that they can supply, they can comment, put the answer to this question in the comments below that they can help with?
Yep. Have you seen a planner before? And if you have, how long did it take you to get your advice? A lot of clients wait 1, 2, 3, 6 months. If you're waiting more than 1 week to get your advice, then your planner's not using Asendium, and they're who we want to talk to.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so if you've ever spoken to a financial planner, know of a financial planner, look, I think anywhere over the world right now in terms of the data that we're looking for, please hit these guys up, jump on their LinkedIn page is going off. They've got tons of great content, and I'm going to give them a shove to do it even more, like we are. So, hey, Scott, thank you very much for coming in. If you've got questions for us, comment below. Was this Talking Business episode helpful or not? Tell us yes or no, because that's going to help us to improve our content. And we will see you all here next time on Best Practice TV if you subscribe to the page and turn on the notifications. So give us a like, hit the like button, smash the subscribe button. We're going to put all the links below. Give us a couple of hours to do that below the live feed in the description. And then you're going to see the rest of this content come out on some of our other platforms. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.